are in our second week of our course, Come to Papa, Encountering the Father that Heals Our Deepest Pain. And in our last session, we talked a little bit about the design that God had in mind from the very beginning about how His character and His nature, His understanding of who we are as His sons and daughters, as those He has both created and redeemed for His own possession, how those realities from the mind and the heart of God get communicated into the heart of each one of us as His son or as His daughter. And we talked a little bit about how that plan was in God's mind to reveal and release His understanding, His perspectives, His character through our parents, both the masculine and feminine side, male and female. He created to reflect His full image, both the masculine and the feminine side of God's character. And that would be imparted to us in the context of those family relationships. And we talked a little bit about what happens when that distortion comes, when the human parents, the first ones, Adam and Eve, turned sideways to hear the voice of the tempter and to embrace, to choose other than love, to choose a way forward that would set themselves in the position of gods in their own lives, trying to take charge of their own destiny instead of trusting the Father to bring about His purposes in His perfect ways and in His perfect timing. And so today we want to look in this session number 4 at what happens when these systems fail, what happens when it breaks down, and what does it look like when these systems are broken in our lives? What is the effect of that kind of thing that takes place with us? And so first of all, I want to talk about the fact that there are laws of God that govern our experiences, and these laws are essential, they're important, they operate whether we're aware of them or not, or whether we agree with them or not. So I want to take you initially to Psalm 19, which is a beautiful passage of worship and exaltation in the glory and the beauty of God, and then the understanding of the law of God and the perfection of it comes in that context. And so David is writing, and I imagine that as he's writing this psalm, perhaps he's a young man, still on the backside of the desert watching the sheep, and it's this incredibly boring existence in some ways, and yet what he has to do in those times is to meditate on the creation, on the beauty of God as revealed in nature. And that's what Psalm 19, the first several verses, are all about. So let me read from Psalm 19, verses 1 through 6. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows His handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. So the creation is speaking about the beauty and the glory of God. That's what the glory of God is. His beauty revealed in the created works that He has made. In them He has set a tabernacle for the sun, which is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices like a strong man to run its race. Its rising is from one end of heaven, and its circuit to the other end, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. And I can just imagine this young man, David, exulting in the beauty of the night sky, and then as the sun begins to rise and he feels the warmth of it, all of a sudden there's a revelation that comes to his heart. Oh my goodness! This is like the passion of a bridegroom, and something is ignited in David's heart as he perceives from the creation the very character of God, the beauty and the glory of God. And then he immediately goes into this section of the psalm. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. And the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold. Yes, than much fine gold. Now, when I first started meditating on Psalm 19, I was a little confused at why he would jump from this exaltation in the beauty of God to the perfection of the law of God. And then it occurred to me that as David was gazing on the beauty of the Lord and the majesty and the order, the wonder of his creation, that there was an understanding that came to his mind that the way God has designed things is perfect. The way he has set things in order, the law of God, the reality of how God orders his universe and orders the lives of his people as they inhabit his world is perfect. And so as we examine some of the laws of God today, we understand that there is perfection there. This is the way life works because it's the way God intended it to work. You know, if you buy a fine machine like an expensive car or some other kind of exotic machine, you want to read the directions. You want to find out what the creator, what the designer said about how to best operate that vehicle. You don't want to put sugar in the gas tank. You don't want to put something foreign into the vehicle because it won't run like it was intended to run. You put bad stuff in, you get bad stuff out. That's just a reality of life. And so God has given us these laws, these realities of his word and of his ways that help us understand how life is intended to work in his design, in his ways, so that our lives would be filled with goodness and perfection, even as he designed them to. And so David concluded that God's law is perfect, and these laws are in operation whether we are aware of them or not. For example, let's take, for example, the law of gravity. I've got this little remote control unit in my hand here that I use to operate the camera that I'm working with right now. And there's a law of gravity. And that law of gravity is that opposite things attract, and that there's a weight to this little item. And if I drop it, it falls into my hand. It falls every time. It doesn't matter whether I like the law of gravity or whether I agree with it or whether I think it's a bad law. It just works. And there's no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter if you're a king in a kingdom or a pauper on the street. If you step off the curb in a wrong way and twist your ankle, you're going to hurt yourself. It doesn't matter whether you are a wealthy person. It doesn't matter whether you're a child on a bicycle. It doesn't matter who you are. The law of gravity is functional. And there's no way to overcome that unless you impose a higher law. And so, for example, there's the law that we call the law of aerodynamics. And that law is that if you take a vehicle of some kind, an airplane we call it, and you form the fuselage in a certain kind of way, and you shape the wings, and they have a certain design to them and a shape to them, and you put it all together in the right way, then you add thrust, you add that jet engine or the propeller engine, however you want to propel your airplane, and it goes down the runway at a certain kind of speed, and when it reaches, and I'm told that a 737 jet, for example, when it reaches about 167 miles an hour, it has to fly. Why? Because there is a law of aerodynamics, a law of lift that actually pulls that airplane up off the ground. Because of the shape of the wings, the shape of the fuselage, the speed going forward, that law is enacted. And as long as all the principles of that law of aerodynamics are functioning, the airplane has to fly. That's why when there is a crash of an airplane, the first question we ask was, what went wrong? How come something happened in order for that airplane to fall out of the sky? Because all things being equal, according to the law of aerodynamics, it has to fly until it is time for it to land by the design of the pilot and the design of the aircraft. And so the only way to overcome gravity is by a higher law. And so in the same kind of way, there are spiritual laws that operate in our lives that they operate whether we are aware of them or not, whether we agree with them or not, whether we like them or not. It's the way God has designed life to work. And if we are ignorant of those laws and break them, actually you don't ever break the laws of God, you just simply illustrate them. A person who steps off the side of a building doesn't break the law of gravity, he illustrates it. And so unless those dynamics of the law of aerodynamics is in play, he's going to fall to the ground. In the same kind of way, there are realities of God's spiritual laws, how we relate to Him, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to one another in our family settings and in our friendship circle, in our business dealings, that if they are not conformed to the laws of God, we're going to come into difficulty and stress in our lives, and broken relationships and difficulty and the effects of what we call the effects of sin in our lives, breaking the law, missing the mark of God's perfection. And so in our next session, we're going to talk about what these key laws are that play into our experience of God's goodness, of our family relationships, how we perceive ourselves, and how we relate to those around us. So as you consider this first session, I want to encourage you to ponder on these things. First of all, take time to worship God out of Psalm 19, verses 1 through 6. Take some time to reflect on the beauty of God and His creation. Watch a video of the created story. Go out into the countryside and look at the stars at night. Watch the moon and watch the sunrise. And let your heart be exalted in the majesty and the beauty of the creation of God, the glory of God revealed in His created works. And make that connection between the perfection of how God has ordered the natural realm and how He has ordered the spiritual realm as well. And let that passionate love of the Father that caused Him to create such beauty and to communicate so beautifully to us through His creation, that our hearts would be impacted by His ways and by His word. And then consider then, in the aftermath of that, how the revealed beauty and the passion of God leads us to the conclusion that His ways are good. That the ways that He has given to us in His Word and through His Son Jesus Christ are actually the best ways to live life. That when we walk outside of His parameters, there are things that are going to happen just simply by the reality of how God has designed life to work. And if we decide not to follow those kinds of things, we can expect to experience certain kinds of negative realities that can only be remedied as we come back into alignment with God's ways. God bless you as you work through these things. We'll see you in a little while with session 5.